Welcome to the training log for the week of July 10th. I haven't made one of these in over a month, mostly because I haven't had anything to talk about and I hadn't recorded any sets to talk over anyways. This week I will talk about the new program I am using, give a bit of information on its background and where you can find more, and then maybe discuss a bit of why I'm choosing to use this program now. Flesh and Metal is a program I developed about a year ago. It is not for any specific use. It is a very general program template that can be applied to almost any use. It has a full program guide on the Snapcity Drive. Just check out the link in my bio and then check out the IG posts and then find the article on Flesh and Metal. The core idea of Flesh and Metal is to take a single movement, one that you don't regularly train, and hit it for consecutive PRs again and again and again until you eventually fail, and at that point you stop performing that movement and you pick a new one. I encourage anyone interested in this program to read the full article, as it's going to cover the hows, the whys, the whens, and all your question words. But for anyone that does not want to read the article but still wants to follow along with these videos, I will briefly talk about what a week of this program looks like. I choose to run Flesh and Metal as an A-B scheme. It's not the only way to run it, but I think it's the best. So I will take Mondays and Thursdays to perform either a bench pressing movement or a squatting movement, and then Tuesdays and Fridays to perform either an overhead pressing movement or a floor pulling movement. And I will alternate these two movements as one fails. So if I fail a bench pressing movement and have to pick a new movement, I will pick a squat. And when I eventually fail that squatting movement, I will go back to a bench pressing movement. Now, I opt not to maintain a failed movement as a secondary movement as talked about in the article. That's mostly because I want a bit more flexibility in my programming and I kind of know what I'm doing. If you are not so experienced and you're just looking for a program you can run more as written, I would highly suggest you keep that secondary movement. It retains a bit of structure and it allows you to kind of really hammer in any technical skills you developed while using it as a primary movement. I use days here labeled as off, so Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday for additional hypertrophy days. So I do work out every day of the week, barring the occasional rest day as needed. I think this works just fine, as I don't do a ton of accessory work after the primary movements on the Flesh and Metal days. So the overall volume for the entire week is probably about on par with a full day if it was treated as a 4-day program. I just like spreading it out mostly because I like training every day and because I think it lets me hit every set a little bit harder. I'm opting to use Flesh and Metal now because it is a semi-structured program with a lot of room for variation and personal choice. I need some structure, as I had absolutely none for the last couple of months. Between strongman training and injury rehab, I didn't really have any plan. I played almost entirely by ear, which resulted in me mostly just messing around and not getting quite as much done as I could. So this allows me to put some structure back in my week while still leaving enough room that I can properly work on rehab my shoulder and kind of taking that one as it comes. Because right now I don't think I can necessarily sign myself up for a more strict and structured program, because I don't necessarily know what I'll be able to handle in a month or what I can even handle in a week. So with that all in mind, I'll briefly talk about the two movements I'm currently working on for Flesh and Metal. The first is finally getting some actual use out of my spider bar. I've had this for almost 3 months now, but haven't done really any working sets with it, just some odd fun lifts. So I want to actually get a chance to, use it for training. I really actually like these box squats. It's maybe 3 inches higher than parallel, and there's a very slight pause, and I'm doing them with my legs as wide as the rack will allow, which is significantly wider than my traditional squat stance. And it definitely feels different, but it doesn't feel bad. I feel a lot more in my legs than I do in my back. I feel like I'm not quite good morning up as much as I normally do, and I'm still moving pretty decent weight, so I'm kind of excited to see where these go and if it will perhaps train me how to actually squat a little bit in the future, though I find that pretty unlikely. My sets for this week were 495 times 6 and 505 times 6. My second movement is an overhead pressing movement, and it's just a pretty standard push press. I'm just kind of trying to see what my shoulder can take right now. I'm up to 165 for 5 and 6 reps, I believe was this week, which is obviously far less than I was, but a lot better than I was even just a little bit ago. I'm still not comfortable locking out fully overhead, so you can see I'm a bit shifted at the top and I'm not quite really putting that shoulder joint into the most secure locked position, because it's just not quite stable enough and it is a little bit uncomfortable at the full range of motion. So I can get the weight up, I can get something resembling a lockout, but it's still a work in progress and I haven't pressed anything for a long time, so even the rest of my body is kind of unused to it. On top of that, I'm still working on some rehab work, including loaded stretches such as this, attempting to work back in the last bit of range of motion I need in order to effectively overhead press. I definitely do not have as much range in my right shoulder as I do in my left, but I'm working on improving that. And also there is strict shoulder work just to try and build back strength through the full range of motion. A push press is pretty good, especially when it's as bad of a push press as mine is, but I'm still kind of jumping that initial part and I need to build that strength back through strict pressing as well. So that is largely the plan moving forward. I will use the flesh and metal sets to add some structured compound work to my week, and then I will support that with various accessory work, including specific shoulder rehab, whereas most other movement patterns are basically back to where they were. I still have to use slightly reduced loads for some movements, or a reduced load at least for my right side, but as you can see here, I'm able to do some pretty heavy rows, not really any issue to my shoulder. There's a few rowing movements that still pinch a little bit on my right shoulder, but I'm getting that almost back, and the same thing for horizontal pressing. The right side's a little bit weaker. I still can't hit, say, a bench max, but I'm getting pretty dang close, which is not bad for 3.5-ish months out. With my remaining time, I want to talk about something I experienced yesterday, and I've just kind of been thinking about it ever since. I was doing a top set on the hack squat machine, which is a machine I haven't used in quite a while in my leg days. And going into the set, I was expecting to get maybe mid-teens for my reps. My PR after months and months ago when I was regularly using the machine was 22 or 23 reps at this weight. And the warm seemed hard, and the first couple of reps of the working set felt hard, and it didn't seem like there was any chance I was going to get anywhere near that PR range. But as I got to 5 reps and then 10 reps and 15 reps, I realized I could just keep going. And by the time I got to that 20th rep, I realized if I wanted to, I could set a PR here. And it was kind of in that moment when the world collapsed to just me, machine, the fluorescent light above me, and really nothing else. I realized that each individual rep of a high rep set like that is not that difficult. If you were to fully isolate it and you hadn't done any reps before, weren't planning to do any reps afterwards, it was just you and your body at its current fatigue level, you could do that rep and it wouldn't be that big a deal. But the difficulty mentally in these high rep sets comes from the apprehension of the reps yet to come and the memory that you just did a ton of reps. And the actual rep you're about to do is not inherently that big of a deal because it's relatively lightweight and it's just one rep. So why do you have to think about the reps you still have to do or the reps you just did? You can opt to only think about that one rep you have to do in this moment. And this might seem like psychological, metaphysical, kind of high-minded nonsense, but I will tell you that when I was sitting there after 20 reps of hack squat and I was looking at 5 more, that thought made it strangely easy to get those remaining 5 reps, despite the fact that I wouldn't have even begun to think I could have done that when I started that set. So yeah, whether you think that is just kind of a pointless observation or not, just think about it next time you have a high rep lower body set, because a lot of sets end because of mental failure rather than physical failure. And oddly enough, that thought process really helped me get those extra reps. So yeah, going forward, I will try to make these semi more regularly, going over the movements I'm selecting for flesh and metal and maybe talking about why I'm picking them and what I'm finding the benefit of them to be. But other than that, that's all I have for this week, and I will see you all real soon.